A lot of things going on in the world of rock. Of course, radio-wise, one thing good, one thing bad. The good news is that 89X, the legendary radio alternative station that rocked Detroit in the 90s, 2Ks, 210s, 2010s, came back on the air on Thursday. Yeah, Thursday, the station made its grand entrance back into the world of radio. And so far, the reviews on the station have nothing but good, I should say. 89X now goes by the slogan Windsor's Alternative, not Windsor and Detroit's Alternative, because, you know, they kind of want to make the Canadians happy. Of course, they're technically a Canadian station, CIMX. That's the call sign. 88.7 on the dial. Of course, the station was country for 5 years as Pure Country 89. That ain't the thing anymore. So good news if you're an alternative fan. Of course, the station will continue to play a lot of the stuff from yesterday and today. So very good news. Some people are even saying that the station sounds a lot better than the other alternative station in the Detroit region, which is Alt 98.7. So there you go. Of course, I already told you the bad news. Milwaukee is losing its alternative. 102.1 WLUM, along with sister station B93.3, are both being sold to K-Love and is expected to change format by the end of the month, within the month or so. Of course, the radio stations were owned by a company called Milwaukee Radio Alliance, and the situation at hand is that now comes word that the reason why the stations had been sold was because one of the companies that made up Milwaukee Radio Alliance, Time Shamrock is its name, is having some major financial difficulties. And they own a bunch of newspapers. They've had to sell some of them. So that could be it. So, but anyway, of course, the other party is the family of football great, Willie Davis. The funny thing is, I've read that Davis informed his family do not sell any stations. Well, they have. So, and it was Davis was really instrumental in WLUM. And I told you the story about how they went from top 40 to alternative. It was because of a tragic incident involving a high school principal being murdered by one of his students. The student was a huge fan of rap and hip-hop, and Davis felt that it played a role in his death. So anyway, moving forward, now here's another bad story. Now this is more, I don't know if you want to call it bad, I don't know if you want to call it funny, or just stupid. I'm going to tell you the story anyway. At the KoRn concert, KoRn and System of a Down concert at Metlife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, a man was caught on the upper deck of the stadium masturbating. That's right, he was seen pumping away on camera. A man was shooting with a cell phone camera. People noticed and they started throwing beer and popcorn at the guy. One person was even nice enough to sucker punch him on the back of his head, telling him to knock it off. Of course, obviously there were some minors present. Anyway, what happened was finally East Rutherford's finest came to the guy and yanked him off his seat and slapped some cuffs on him. And of course, finally, he was seen on camera getting served, obviously. And some people made some comments that the guy was simply buttering his corn. And here's the thing. The guy had blonde hair and had kind of a puffy face. He looked a little, he reminded me a little bit of Sylvester P. Smith, the mascot of Cracked Magazine. The janitor guy. He looked a little bit like him, but somebody even said that he looked a little bit like Kiko, who was one of the characters on the old Mexican TV series El Chavo. Oh my God, he was right. Yeah, El Chavo de Oco, the Boy of 8. One of the most popular shows in Hispanic TV history. Chespirito. But I think the best news of all week might have to be the fact that after 16 years, the band Mudvayne, one of my favorite new metal bands, have released their first new single in 16 years. The song has a very appropriate title for the times. Hurt People, Hurt People. That's right, Hurt People, Hurt People. A lot of people are raving about the new tune. Although some people have compared the song to More Human Than Human from White Zombie. More human than human. Hurt people, hurt people. Oh, man. I wonder if Rob's calling his lawyers. Anyway. So, when I think about this title, I think about the problems on Earth. And, of course, the big trouble regarding what happened recently in Minneapolis with that horrible school shooting. And we're starting to learn more and more about the shooter, that this person was really effed up in the head. And when she was a young boy, because, she was transgendered. The point was that one of the students caught this guy drawing Nazi symbols. And he was obsessed as a young boy with Nazis and murder. And he was a sick person. And what's even more disgusting, in my honest opinion, is when our government, led by our idiot president Donald Trump, has to step in, and people in his cabinet think that they know the answers. And of course, one of those people, obviously, is RFK Jr. Mr. Vaccines cause autism. No, they don't. Folks, I'm autistic myself. When I was a young boy, my mom was anti-vax hardcore. The only vaccination I got was chicken pox. And it was all because there was a girl at my school who got chicken pox. And everybody was telling all the parents, get your kids vaccinated now. And that was the only time. I never got a shot for measles. I never got one for all these shots. Because my mom was brainwashed by her mother, my grandmother, into thinking that vaccines were bad. They were evil because there's mold in the needles. What the fuck? God damn these people. And of course, RFK Jr. is telling people that you don't need a vaccine. Fuck you. Yeah, I mean, I really hope that the next time I go to the doctor, I do get my vaccination, but I doubt it, because now they're saying, oh, it's not healthy, it's gonna kill you, it's got this, it's got that, and it's like, oh, it's a hoax. You know, I didn't vote for this shit, folks. It's truth that Donald Trump is the sickest president of all time. And RFK Jr. is leading the charge of stupidity. And now he's claiming that because allegedly the shooter in the Minneapolis shooting was taking, they call them SSDIs. You know, it's another way of saying antidepressants. That now we need to do a study on them to prove that they actually do more harm than good. What the fuck are you thinking, asshole? Anyway, folks, I take an antidepressant, citalopram, okay? And there's a reason why, folks, I've been taking it now. Folks, here's the story with me and antidepressants. So, I didn't have the greatest life of all time. I've dealt with people talking behind my back because I lived in a small town and I had autism. I didn't have many good friends growing up. I had to deal with people talking behind my back, saying that I was a retard. People called me a retard and a faggot in my face, and they were the more popular kids in school. And I was, there were kids in my neighborhood who took my elementary school yearbook and wrote C+W a couple hundred times throughout it, and because they thought that I was a boyfriend to this morbidly obese fat girl who was really disgusting. And I made a promise to myself that I would date a pretty girl, marry her, have kids, and that never happened. You know, I'm 44 years old, and I'm still single. I've had a few girlfriends, and, you know, nothing doing. And I would even consider most of the girls I dated true girlfriends, because they all cheated on me. They all, took money from me. One girl took money from me and spent it on, heroin, and, I was basically a sugar daddy, and she gave me nothing. And, and honestly, I haven't even took a girl on a date in over a year. And, she was an amazing, I really liked her, but she ended up ghosting me online. But, when I was a kid, I was telling myself, this will all be over someday. When I become an adult, the bullying, the bullshit will stop. And it did not, because I got stuck working for a company that didn't give me raises for 10.5 years, because I got stuck with a bad boss who, didn't give two shits about me or anyone else. He would instead of giving us a raise, he would occasionally give us a Meyer card. Sometimes he would just give us too much work to do, and he'd blame us for not getting shit done on time because he was a cheap bastard. And yet here he was going on all these trips around the world. And the only good thing I have to say about him is at least he retired at 60. But it was too little, too late. Just months before he retired, I was put on first shift. I was now making less money than when I first started. And guess what happened? I started getting panic attacks. I had just gotten, I just had a car accident. The cop said it was my fault because even though I looked both ways twice, she just came out of nowhere and smacked into me. I ended up having to drive a piece of shit car for nearly 10 years that had problem after problem after problem. It was a fleet vehicle, unfortunately. And it was, I was bullied online because of, people who pretended to be my friends really weren't my friends. So what happened was I ended up starting to have panic attacks. I ended up, so the story was, now that I was working in the morning, and now I was hearing that the people that I was training were all getting paid more than I was. I really wanted to go up to my boss and tell him, dude, you are the biggest piece of shit on earth. And guess what? Somebody else did, and she got fired. And the only people who were smart, who were nice enough to actually tell him that he was a piece of shit were his business partner, who ended up buying him out and forcing him out of the company. And the reason why was because 2 years in a row, the company was losing money. We were actually on the verge of bankruptcy. Fuck. I was actually going to write him a letter anonymously. You see, what happened was he decided to put these little pieces of paper throughout our plant that had question marks on it. At the same time, he discontinued doing the Meyer cards. He basically started to fuck us over. And what happened was he started showing these catalogs of failed print shops. Oh, everything's for sale. And he said, oh, this machine looks like our machines. Look familiar to you? The point is, the print industry's dying. Nobody reads books anymore. People are buying e-readers, and it's gonna take over like television took over radio, blah, 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 blah. And now we have to think differently. It was his way of telling us, you're not going to get a raise anytime soon. And what happened was we all had to give our little answers and brainstorm what solutions can we do. And we didn't get anything from it. So this is what happened. Just a few months after we gave him all the answers, he went on 4 vacations in 6 weeks. While we were, and meanwhile, we were down to 35 hours a week. I actually had to go get partial unemployment. Even though he told people, don't even think about it. I did it anyway because it's the law. I couldn't live. Hell, I couldn't even live on 40 hours because of him. And when he pushed us all to first shift, kicking and screaming, that's when the problems only got worse for me. I started getting panic attacks. There were times I felt like I was going to have a heart attack. I was in, another one of our temp workers, that he put in was even asking me, hey man, how much money do you make? I'm not going to tell you. Come on, man. $15. He was a black guy. He was harassing me. I wanted to kill him. Hell, he even tried to get me to go to his church. It's like, dude, we're working 6 days a week. Why do I need to work, go to a church on the 7th day of the week? Plus, his church was in the ghetto, number one. And number two, his church's pastor, who was his uncle, by the way, it turns out they even had a show on TBN. And I even told him, I do not do business with TBN with televangelists. Oh, he gives so much back to the community. Oh, he does this. And yeah. So, no, sorry, not sorry. Okay, this is why I'm not a fan of organized religion. They are the biggest fuck-ups in the history of mankind. And then on top of that, So anyway, I started getting these panic attacks out of nowhere. The good news, I did get some good news. My boss retired. He had to, obviously. His partner buy him up. By the way, I was going to tell you this. I wanted to write him a letter saying, dude, if you're so Christian and so holy, you have forgotten who you're really working for. And that's the man up there. The same man who went to the young rich man and told him that it's easier for a man to, a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a wealthy person to go to heaven. And here you are living in luxury while we here in Grand Rapids are making the same wage that we've been making for 10 years. And my life has been in fucking neutral. Maybe even reverse at times, because now I'm stuck with a car that I can't afford. Because of him, I had to max out 3 credit cards just to make it. And, I understand it was, 2 years after the Great Recession that was started by George W. Bush, worst fucking president until Trump became president. And, it just goes on and on. So anyway, I ended up going to the doctor. So anyway, I talked with my new boss, and he was understanding. He knew that I was hurting. And, the good news, a couple of good things did happen. One, he did suggest I go to the doctor. I did. And my doctor originally put me on Celexa. And then so this is what happened. The good news was I started getting wage increases very shortly thereafter. And now I'm making way more than what I was making throughout the 2000s. Way more. I mean, it's not a perfect wage, but it's way more than what I was making in the past. And, I'm doing much more better financially. But anyway, I thought that I was doing good enough on Celexa that I ended up weaning myself off of it. But then things only got worse. Maybe a year or so after I started taking stopped Celexa, I should say, the panic attacks returned. One day I was eating lunch at work, and my neck started to seize up, and my heart started to race. And even worse, my doctor suddenly closed up his shop. And so I had no doctor to go to. So I ended up having to find a new doctor, and thankfully and this is what I did. I actually had to go to a walk-in clinic. And Asian guy put me on Zoloft, and Zoloft screwed me up. I was still having panic attacks. I was still having, and I was, the bad was actually outweighing the good on that one. I was taking, I was drinking water like a horse. I had lost 10 pounds. That was a good thing about it. I lost 10 pounds in a week. But still, I had to go to thankfully, I did find another doctor. She finally saw me. She put me back on Celexa. But I started to gain weight, so she put me on Citalopram. It's not perfect, but you know what? I don't have panic attacks anymore. I haven't had a panic attack in years. And it's good. So why is RFK going around and saying, they cause panic, it causes people to kill others? Fuck you, asshole. Say whatever you want about the Kennedy family, but you know what? I told Darren Gibson from Southpaws a couple of years ago, and he agreed with me. Every litter has its runt. And that's who RFK Jr. is. Mr. Anti-Vax, Mr. Vaccines cause autism even though they don't. Mr. Don't listen to science. His bullshit, what's funny is right now I'm about ready to walk into a store. I have to get my father cigarettes, unfortunately. And I'm actually kind of across the street from a Steak and Shake. And they have embraced RFK for the fact that he's now telling restaurants to stop using healthy oils for French fries because, healthy oils are bad for some reason. And now here's the story with Steak and Shake. Steak and Shake is owned by this guy named Sardar Biglari. And he owns Steak and Shake, and he also owns Maxim Magazine. Under his control, Maxim, for the first time ever last year, endorsed Donald Trump. Biglari and not only that, Biglari is let me tell you how much of a douchebag he really is. Sardar Biglari, since he owns Maxim Magazine, now we all know what Maxim is. It's basically the PG-13 rated version of Playboy, where the models aren't totally naked and, sometimes they are, but they use stuff to cover their nudity, like hand bras, and maybe they'll put like a little blanket over their crotch. But anyway, the story is, he is just like Donald Trump. He's been known for just simply walking into dressing rooms and on sets where girls are naked. I mean, he is an asshole. He doesn't care. His philosophy is, I own the goddamn magazine. I make out all the rules. And not only that, he's run Steak and Shake into the ground. Years and years ago, I would go to Steak and Shake. For less than $10, I had a delicious steak burger. French fries the French fries kind of sucked, though, I will admit. But I ate them anyway because they were itty bitty. It took forever to eat unless you wanted to eat a whole bunch of them at once. And of course, a bowl of chili. And a big ass milkshake, which was good. But here's what happened. When Biglari took over Steak and Shake, it was like the service started to really suffer. One time I went to a Steak and Shake in Bell Creek in the middle of the night because I had been driving back from Kentucky in a snowstorm. I white-knuckled it all the way from Indianapolis to Bell Creek. I got to the Steak and Shake there. I was hungry, 1 a.m. or so. Got in. People were like, take a seat. We'll be with you shortly. I waited 15 minutes. No service. So I walked out. And you know what? And not only that, of course, I went to another Steak and Shake. I ordered the chili. The chili came out cold. I got really pissed off. And then I went to another Steak and Shake. Once again, I ordered the chili. And bitch gave me a salad. And I said, this is not chili. And my mom even insisted that I still give her a tip. I have not been to Steak and Shake in years. And you know what? What was sad was that when I first went to one nearly 25 years ago, that was the one in Cascade. They had a really hot waitress who was actually friendly towards me. I should have dated her. But anyway, so it's like you never see any of the commercials on TV anymore. They used to advertise a lot on TV. And now they are putting up these giant billboards that are saying beef tallow fries. We don't use seed oil anymore because, seed oil is bad for you for some reason. And beef tallow is better. But guess what? Beef tallow is loaded with fat and trans fat and all this garbage that will clog up your arteries. What the fuck are you assholes thinking? Ugh. But you know what? God bless Culver's. Even though they're not healthy either, the one reason why I love Culver's is even though they are minority owned by the Rourke company, the same idiots who own Arby's and Hardee's and Subway, the Cheesecake Factory, they own all these restaurants. Jimmy John's is another. Rourke, of course, is part of the reason why the minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour. You know, it was part of the Build Back Better plan that, you know, was signed into law by Biden, and a wage increase to $15 an hour, which was needed. Guess what? It never happened. And the reason why was because Rourke stepped in and told Congress, oh, you're not going to do that. Oh, no. So what I'm trying to say is, this is a dangerous government here. You know, every time you tell Donald Trump the truth, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get fired. Donald Trump, it's like that cabinet meeting he had the other day where everyone is saying, you're the greatest president since Roosevelt. Your economic policies are wonderful. Yeah, Midas Touch even made a video of it. And of course, these giant posters of him in Washington, D.C. that make him look like a Kim Jong-il. We can go on and on, folks. Donald Trump is just fucking up this country. I can't believe he's our president. I hope that, next year people will wise up, go to the polls, vote Democrat, make him weak for his last 2 years in office. Because, people need to grow a fucking brain. Why did we get him in? Oh, because we want a president who's not about woke. Yeah. Well, guess what that got us? And Trump talked about gas prices being low. It went up to $3.49 a gallon. I don't know, folks, but this country is not going in the right direction. And I'm wondering if we're going to have more of this shit as the time progresses. But anyway, I know it's Labor Day weekend. I actually had to work today. Unfortunately, we had a maintenance guy come in and one of our machines was down for a week, and now we're way behind. Yeah, wonderful timing, guys. Talk about, and now I'm gotta get my dad his cigarettes and just bail on out of here. I actually have to mow my lawn. I have an old father to take care of. So anyway, have a great day, everyone. Have a great Labor Day weekend. Good day and good luck. I'll talk to you soon.